Hello and welcome to another episode of Second Wind. This week, The Dig. The Dig tells the story of 5 astronauts who are tasked with altering the course of an enormous asteroid which is heading for Earth. It is soon discovered that the asteroid is hollow, and 3 of these astronauts suddenly find themselves engaged in the most significant scientific and spiritual discovery in the history of humankind. The story was thought up by none other than Steven Spielberg. Originally it was for his 80s anthology TV show Amazing Stories, but quite quickly realising this idea was going to be too expensive for a single episode of a TV show, he thought about making it into a movie. But somewhere along the line somebody suggested making it into a video game, and after he saw how well the video game adaptation of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came out, he decided that a LucasArts adventure game was perfect. On the face of it, The Dig might be about these 3 astronauts trying to get home, but the game isn't about that at all, in my opinion. I feel like the themes hinted at in this game are way more transcendental than they first appear. The story covers themes like death, transcendence and immortality, and it addresses these themes in a meaningful and thought-provoking way. The story reminds me a bit of Greg Bear's Eon, which is another science fiction story about astronauts finding weird alien discoveries inside a hollow asteroid. It's easier to draw parallels between this and movies like Alien and Prometheus as well. The actual story for the game was written by Orson Scott Card, the author of my favourite book of all time, and also incidentally some of the dialogue options in Monkey Island. The dialogue is chock full of 80s cliche, but I don't think that matters too much because the whole thing is brought to life by an absolutely top draw voice cast. Robert Patrick plays Commander Lowe alongside Murray Weiss, and probably the hardest working voice actor in history, Steve Bloom. Accompanying that story are some of the most obtuse puzzles in LucasArts adventure game history. Now, considering that you're human astronauts on an alien world trying to figure things out without any knowledge of the culture or the language, it kind of makes sense for these puzzles to be so hard. Generally speaking, the challenge is quite high. If you have an understanding of that vocabulary of adventure games, you won't have too hard a time. But there's like 3 or 4 parts in this game that are just so absolutely alien. There's no other way to describe it, but like I said, I kind of think that works in the favour of the story. By chucking out the gags and concentrating on a more serious, considered story, The Dig is probably LucasArts' most ambitious adventure game. The visuals are primitive, even for the time, but then again, this game took like 6 years to come out, which is why the graphics ended up looking dated when the game finally came out. Now in the 90s, that kind of development cycle is completely unprecedented. Now I think that speaks volumes for the ambition that the developers had going into this project. Had this game actually come out in 1989, which was about when it should have, it would have looked tremendous and it would have blown all of its competition out of the water. As is, when it came out, it did look a little bit ropey, but graphics for me are such a small part of the game experience, it's really easy for me to overlook that. In summary, The Dig is an imaginative extraterrestrial adventure. It's a cerebral examination of the unknown and a cinematic and impressive story. If you're new to adventure games, then maybe I'd recommend starting with something like Monkey Island. But if you're not new to the genre and you haven't tried it, I can't recommend The Dig enough. Thanks for watching, guys, and subscribe for more old PC gaming videos.
Perfect. Perfect.